Why do narcissists always seem to believe their own lies?
Have you ever thought about what it might be like to look inside the twisted, toxic mind of a narcissist? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today at queenbee.com. So let's get started.
Closed captioning provided by Athena Moberg and CPTSDFoundation.org.
My name is Angie Atkinson, and this is Toxic Relationship Rehab, where I help you discover, understand, and overcome toxic relationships in your life. So if you want to take back your life, embrace your power, and become the best possible version of yourself, hit that subscribe button, stick with me, and let's get going. If you've ever been involved in a serious relationship with a narcissist, whether you worked with that person, you were married to that person, or partnered with that person, co-parenting with that person, or even you were the child or the relative of that person, chances are that you have experienced what I'm about to tell you about, which is a concept called narcissistic distortion. That's a term I made up, and it's a type of manipulation. It turns out it's not so far off from the actual issue that narcissists have that make it so difficult for us to be with them. We all know that narcissists are the type of people who just believe whatever they think, and whatever they think turns into fact in their mind, right? Their convictions are always very strong, and if we're being honest, they are as convinced of whatever lies they've whipped up in their heads as truth as a normal person would be of the fact that the grass is green and the sky is blue and basic facts like that. They literally believe their own lies, or they seem to. For a lot of narcissists, especially those who are very charismatic, this type of behavior, it kind of becomes contagious. So you have to think about, like, say, a cult leader. That person might actually make everyone around them believe their own lies because they believe them so deeply and they're so charismatic. It's hard to detect someone who lies on that level because we are programmed to only really detect blatant, obvious lies by nature. So since most narcissists kind of move themselves into the direction of actually believing their own lies, it's hard for us to see it. And I think that's part of the reason that, you know, when we go through the love bombing phase, we end up believing all the lies because in the moment that they're saying the lies, they believe the lies. So when they say, oh, you're my soulmate, I love you so much, and they just met you 2 weeks ago, and you look them in their eyes and they seem to be telling the truth, that's because in the moment they are telling the truth because they believe their own lies. They've convinced themselves of this. I think in that moment, it's about having the deep feelings that come with infatuation. And narcissists, although they don't care at all about your feelings once they get to know you well enough, they definitely care about their own feelings, and they assume that they're legitimate because they think or feel those things. This is why they're so convincing. To them, their twisted perceptions have actually become real. So real that they believe them to be the actual truth, at least in the moment that they're saying those things. Now, a psychologist might call this a cognitive distortion. And this is something that's very often associated with people on the cluster B spectrum, narcissists, psychopaths, and sociopaths, for example. A cognitive distortion is defined as an exaggerated or irrational thought pattern believed to perpetuate the effects of psychopathological states, especially depression and anxiety. Aaron T. Beck, a psychologist, was one of the first people to kind of bring this out and call it cognitive distortions. Along with his student, David D. Burns, Beck did significant research on this topic. Now, in 1989, Burns wrote a book called The Feeling Good Handbook. And in that book, he presented kind of an overview of these twisted thought patterns. And he shared some suggestions on how to eliminate these patterns. So in general, a cognitive distortion will actually cause someone to perceive something differently than everyone else does. They become less likely to perceive events, situations, etc., like the majority of other people would. These twisted kind of patterns actually reinforce the narcissist's convoluted thought process, their negative thoughts and their negative emotions. So narcissists are likely to develop a kind of twisted perception of any situation because of the cognitive distortions. It turns out, though, that's bad news for you as well, because narcissists, they can't stand to lose an argument. So as someone who is or has been a supply for them, you're kind of stuck in the middle of that. You're the person they're going to project onto. They're going to twist the facts to suit them during the argument. That way they can be like, I'm still always right, and then avoid taking responsibility for their own bad behavior. This narcissistic distortion or cognitive distortion is, of course, just one more way that you can be manipulated by a narcissist. as well as being sort of a defect that they have on their own. A good example of this, I'm sure you've seen the meme where there's a truck, looks like it's kind of wrapped around a tree, and the caption indicates that a narcissist has blamed the tree for the accident. This comes up often during arguments with narcissists where they might say something that goes a little too far or say something very hurtful, and even if you repeat it right back to them in the moment, they will either blame you for it or swear they never said it and actually start to believe that they never said it. This narcissistic distortion thing is often used as part of the gaslighting process. They just want you to believe whatever lies they've told themselves, and if you refuse to do that, then that kind of shakes the foundation of what they know to be true because they have made up in their head that things are different than they really are. And of course, if you challenge them about this shakes them to the point that they have to maybe rethink their own self-image, and that's not going to work for them. So they come at you. They puff up their chest and get in your face, maybe literally, maybe figuratively. Either way, they come after you and usually verbally or emotionally attack you. Even though you can see right through them, they need to think that you can't. Even though you can look at them and point out every single little behavior, the gaslighting, the cognitive distortion, the projection, deflection, etc. Even though you can do that now that you've been educated about this stuff, the narcissist can't handle that. And if you do try to start pointing out all those things to them, not only will it be not worth your time, but you're probably going to get attacked for doing it, verbally or otherwise. They will get angry, they will deny it, they will play the narcissistic rage and the narcissistic injury cards. And that might be part of the reason that they only show their ugly side to the people closest to them, if you think about it. A lot of narcissists don't seem to be aware of their behavior, while others pretty clearly are. Either way, if you confront them about something that they've done that has been hurtful to you or toxic or in any way negative, they will most definitely launch into a big rage where they'll expect you to apologize and they'll want you on your knees begging for forgiveness. And depending on where you are in your recovery, you may actually end up there, or you may have before. All of these different manipulation tactics are used to control you, confuse you, and keep you in line. The more isolated you become from the people around you, the people who would otherwise support you, the more difficult it is to get away from the narcissist, at least on an emotional level. You become increasingly less functional, they get more and more control over you, and then there's the whole boundaries issue. Most narcissists don't have any concern for your boundaries, and they have a ridiculous level of concern for their own. If you have the nerve to set boundaries with narcissists, they will most certainly blast you for that and take you down a couple of notches so that you stop trying to have those boundaries. They see people as extensions of themselves rather than individuals, and this is evidence of that. Being in that relationship with a narcissist is scary, like a roller coaster ride of emotions. You're going to hit the highest of highs when stuff's good, and then when it's good, it's going to be like really, really good. And then when it's bad, it's going to be really, really bad. You might even lose your grip on reality when the gaslighting gets too deep. Your ability to be a reasonable person or to understand logical things is called into question so often that you end up confused and doubting yourself. Instinct will kick in and you'll just kind of go into survival mode. And that's where you might stay if you never leave. There's no joy in living in fight or flight mode for your whole life. Trust me. You might start to feel okay about having been isolated by the narcissist, and you might even think you prefer it because it's easier to not have to deal with other people's emotions, especially when you're overwhelmed by being responsible for everything the narcissist wants. You'll find that you stop reaching out to people who are close to you because eventually you get tired of them saying to you, well, if it's so bad, why don't you just leave already? You stop being able to do the things that you love to do or that you wanted to do and some of the things that you have to do, and you just have trouble even caring about it. In fact, as time goes on, nothing feels important to you except keeping the narcissist from getting mad at you again. It is emotionally, mentally, and even physically exhausting to be in a relationship with someone like this. You develop serious symptoms that some people will call complex post-traumatic stress disorder. You're probably tired of walking on eggshells to avoid the wrath of your narcissist, but that's kind of part of the whole plan in a way. A narcissist wants you exhausted, wants you so focused on them that you can't see anything else, that your entire existence becomes about pleasing the narcissist. But like the horrible double-edged sword on this one is that if you do succumb and you do decide, okay, you know what, I give up, I'm just going to be the narcissist happy maker or the person that does all the things they want me to do, guess what, my friend? That's not going to be good enough either, because now you'll have no personality and you'll be boring and you'll have nothing to offer. You go numb and you end up not being able to deal with anything. You feel like a shell of your former self. You get so used to the harshness and rude things the narcissist says that you just numb out and you don't even hear them anymore. You're doing that subconsciously in order to protect yourself from further psychological damage. Now, I could go on and on about the games the narcissist plays with you and how everything looks inside of a codependent relationship. But what it all comes down to is that this pattern of abuse, this pattern of mind games, it leaves you feeling used up. It leaves you feeling ridiculously miserable. It leaves you feeling like not even a real person. You feel lost and empty. And then you fall into that whole narcissistic fog thing, or, FOG, fear, obligation, and guilt. You know that pattern that probably most of us have been guilty of at one point or another in our lives. When you're still in that relationship, that fog, that's going to lead you to go running back and apologize and just trying to get things back to normal again. The problem is that normal is very toxic, but you might be too close to see it. This is a type of emotional blackmail. Please remember that you deserve better than this. You deserve to be treated with love and respect in your home, in your workplace, anywhere you go, at least respect. And especially in your home, you deserve to be treated with love. If you're with someone who's not treating you with love and respect most of the time, you have things to think about. You have choices to make, and it's not going to be easy, but I promise you it will be worth your trouble. Looking inside the mind of a narcissist is a very twisted, toxic experience. Living with one and trying to have a relationship with one takes that to a whole new level. Do what you need to do to get yourself safe. All right, now this brings me to the question of the day. And the question of the day is, have you ever dealt with a narcissist on a personal level, on an emotional level? Have you found yourself becoming aware of those cognitive distortions or of the narcissistic rage, narcissistic injury, any of that stuff? And do you find yourself seeing through the narcissist and having them feel offended by that? Share your thoughts, share your ideas, share your experiences in the comment section below, and let's talk about it. One more thing, I just want to say thank you so much to all of my amazing channel members. Thank you so much. Your support, it means the world to me. And to everyone who watches my videos, likes my videos, subscribes to my channels, comments on my videos, shares my videos, thank you so much. You are helping me further spread my message that we don't have to live with narcissistic abuse and that we have the right to be healthy, happy, safe, and loved in our homes, even if it's only loved by ourselves. Stay strong, my friends. As always, thank you so much for being a part of my day and a part of my life. And hey, thanks for letting me be a part of yours. It really does mean a lot to me. I'll see you soon.